Hello, Adam. How are you? We're in our beginning period where we're going to wait until the hour for it to officially start, but I don't have the screens on this particular computer. Let's see, Joe, I've got to catch up with you here. Prove all that. Good afternoon from London, England. Hello, London. Tango Alpha 4. Alpha Echo India. Is that Turkey? Greetings from Colchester, United Kingdom. 91 degrees Fahrenheit. We've got about 105 today here Fahrenheit, so it is quite warm. I'm down here for some flight training. Yankee Oscar 6 Mike. And Adam reports that he had fun at a swap fest this morning. That's good. We will be going over questions. I brought a stack of questions that I have not covered in the past. There's my water. One thing you keep close by here is water. From Portugal, from Sweden, and North Carolina and Atlanta. Yeah, the flying lessons are going well. I guess as the more I fly, the more I discover I don't know. We came pretty close today with me flying the pattern and getting set up for getting on the runway. He did the part to actually land it, and then as soon as it was landed, he gave me the plane again for the run out and getting it back to the fuel depot. The Zygo G90 is at home. I did not bring any ham radio equipment with me at all. Hello from Sweden, Portugal, and Manchester, New Hampshire. The flying is going well. Today, I wanted to step back a little bit and work on turns. This airplane, a lot of airplanes, you push the stick or move the yoke like this, and the airplane tilts, and because it's tilting, it moves in that direction. This plane doesn't do that so much. So you have to use the rudder, and I'm just having to learn that. And so I asked the instructor today if we could just practice turning the silly aircraft. And he kind of tied it together with a few other little things, and we were doing pretty well. Hello from 4Z5VI, 4 Zulu 5 Victor India. And Sachi, where are you? Let's see, OG, yes. Done a few lessons, quite fun but expensive. Yeah, it is expensive, that's for sure. Paying about $30 a day just for the gasoline. Did I just wake up? Oh, I feel like I just woke up, I'll tell you. No, I was up at 5 o'clock this morning. The phone, the wake-up call did not work because last night when I put the phone down, I didn't put it down all the way. So I made a mistake, but I did get up. What kind of plane? It's a little light sport aircraft. My hair is too bad. I can always put on a hat there. It's a light sport aircraft made in kit form by a company that does kits, that makes aircraft kits called RANS. Romeo, Alpha, November, Sierra, RANS. And the model number is an S as in Sierra, Sierra 6, Echo Sierra, S6ES. And it was made by one guy. He sold it to another, and then they sold it to me. So I got the plane because we're just chatting here because it's not on the hour yet. I got the plane because in all of western Colorado there are no light sport aircraft for rent anywhere. Light sport aircraft was kind of a big thing 10, 12 years ago. Not so much anymore, and just finding one to rent, I have to solo in a light sport. So I figured out it would be easier to have my own airplane. And if I get tired of it, I can always sell it, hopefully for nearly as much as I paid for it. It's a very nice plane, like it. It's two-seater, 120 horsepower engine, twin blade prop, fabric covered. So if you want to go for major nostalgia on airplanes, here's a fabric covered airplane for you. It was made in 2007, so 13 years old. I am training at Buckeye, Arizona. Buckeye is about the westernmost terminus of the Phoenix area. Beyond Buckeye is desert, all the way to, I think, Quartzsite is the next town. It's a long ways away. Hello from Erbil, Iraq. Hello, everybody. Let's see, with the changes coming to LSA, hopefully they'll gain popularity again. There's a couple changes they're talking about. One of them is allowing them to fly at night. It's not something I want to do. The whole point in being in an airplane is so you can see a lot. But we'll see what happens. The problem is that it takes the FAA years and years and years to get around to making those changes. We're getting closer to the hour. The temperature here is around 105 Fahrenheit. And we had little tiny clouds in the sky today. Yesterday it was just the haze. Okay, Zachi Farsan is in Israel, and I'm not getting all of the names right. So Phoenix is a great big city. My wife would have come with me down here and then driven the car back, because we're going to take the airplane back. And I'm going to have to take a whole bunch of stuff down to UPS and ship it back, because I brought stuff that just won't fit in the airplane. So, okay, 100 is not flying weather. Well, that's why we get up and we want to be off the ground at 6 in the morning. And then we fly for an hour and land about 7:15, 7:20, and then we'll go up one more time, landing about 8, 8:30, and by 9 o'clock we're done flying for the day. How's the heat? It's cool, 90 degrees in Sandy, Utah. Sandy, Utah is where my parents are buried, in a cemetery up on the side of the hill there. Kentucky, hello Kentucky. And Victor Uniform 2, Foxtrot Oscar Tango from India has said hello. Yeah, I'd use my cell phone alarm, way more reliable, except for the fact that I sleep with earplugs. It's a habit I got into in college because my roommates were just too noisy. I slept with earplugs. And I've kept that habit ever since, over these, how many years now, 40 years since I was doing that. And I don't hear that cell phone little beep, beep, beep over it. When I set the alarm last night, I didn't put the phone receiver all the way back on the hook, and so didn't hear it. Hello, Philly. Philly is there. We've got quite a worldwide group. We've got 67 concurrent users, 70 now. And Super Chat will be open. And we're getting ready to go through these questions here, starting on the hour. We got through some of them on Thursday. Had a very nice live stream on Thursday. And looking through some of these questions a year ago, they're from a year ago. A year ago, the big question was whether I would update the general class videos, which I did, of course. 30 years of shift work, yes. Just down the road from Larkin Mortuary Cemetery. That is where my parents are buried, right there. I try to stop there whenever I'm in the Salt Lake area. I've got 2 sisters there, and another sister in Las Vegas and one in Southern California. So lots of sisters, no brothers. I'm the oldest. I've got 2 kids myself. They're grown and gone. They're in their mid-30s, both of them. So I'm definitely dating myself. Got just a few more minutes, and then we'll hop into these questions where the official start is. Cool 59 in Anchorage. It'd be good flying weather if it's not cloudy or bumpy. Hello from Sedona. Sedona is just up the road here. Sedona is considered a kind of a resort town in this area here, as a very desirable place to be. They have an airport up there at Sedona. It says, you helped me pass my tech and general test recently. Now we're learning about airplanes. Well, I do not intend to turn it into an aviation channel. I may start another channel, an aviation channel, but I'm having trouble, and maybe you guys can help me with this, figuring out what an aviation channel would focus on. There are so many aviation channels. There's lots and lots and lots. There's lots of aviation channels that talk about the beautiful view, or who go to new places and try new restaurants and all that. And I'm going, okay, so you went somewhere and had a $100 hamburger. Doesn't really turn me on. I'm trying to figure out what about aviation would be of particular interest. What can I do with aviation that would not be just simply a repeat of what so many other people are doing? Like with ham radio, I think, I am unique in being the only ham radio channel that follows the ARRL book section for my training videos. There's somebody now who does it chapter for chapter, but I do it section for section. So I'm unique in that regard. Also, my channel is uniquely technical. I try and put in some more technical information into it. Light sport aircraft, yes, that's what I'm flying. A light sport aircraft is under a gross weight of 1,320 pounds, and they generally have about 500-pound gross weight limit, which includes fuel, which makes it a little hard for me to fly because I'm a little bigger around the middle than I should be. Yeah, so I'll have to figure out, focus on your journey in aviation. I think I'm going to do that starting with when I get my sport pilot license, and then talk about that, because there's no point in me putting up a video showing how I do really lousy turns or something like that. But once I get going, because I will be taking the usual pictures from the air and all that, but you got to put something into it to package it to where it means something. People look forward to watching the channel because they're going to get something that is that no other channel can provide. Northwestern Wisconsin. Aviation channel technologies like radio, radar, GPS, etc. Adam Forsberg said I'd watch videos on you doing lousy turns. That's probably so we ought to have a laugh track with it. That's what we should do. Well, it is time to begin. So welcome to everybody who is in. We have 86 concurrent viewers. 272 people have stopped by at least for a moment or two. And my name is Dave Casler, and I am amateur radio, call sign KE0OG, and I have an extra class amateur radio license. This channel normally comes to you from southwestern Colorado, but today is coming to you from the very western edge of the Phoenix area in Arizona in Goodyear. Paul, thank you very much for starting the Super Chat, and I very much appreciate it. If you look down under where it says say something, where you can comment, there's a place there for smiley faces, and then in a rectangle there is a $sign, and that is the Super Chat button. And I really appreciate that. Let's see, love your videos, especially the one you did on end-fed antennas. I've done 2 on end-fed antennas. One on the MFJ, I didn't like it. One on the my antennas, end-fed half-wave, which I was very pleasantly surprised with. It performed far better than I thought it would across more bands. And it seems like a very nice antenna. Neil Marsh said, hit it during turns about a point. Yeah, that's one of the things I'm going to have to learn to do. Somebody doesn't like my eyes saying down is that way. My inner ear is saying, no, it's down over there. When I was in the Air Force, I was in radar. And I was the maintenance officer at the 660th Radar Squadron. But before, while I was still in tech school, I thought, well, I'm in the Air Force, I'd learn how to fly. So I went down to Casler Air Force Base and for my training, and they have an aero club there. So I started to learn to train, and the only thing I came out of that training with was recognizing that my feelings, my body sense of how it is oriented is a total lie. Don't trust your body, trust your instruments. Okay. All right. This first question comes from Todd Burchard, November 3, Tango Juliet Bravo. And he is talking about different rigs and so on. And he wants to know whether to get a 991A or the ICOM 7300 or the Kenwood TS590SG. Well, he named the 3 radios that compete for the same spot in the market. They're all good radios. The one that I've chosen as the reference station radio is the ICOM 7300. So whenever I do a video about your ye old basic HF transceiver, it's going to be the 7300. So if you have a choice between those, you can compare nits. This one is 1 millimeter larger, but well, so what? The radios are essentially equivalent in terms of what they can do, with the exception that the Yaesu 991 will cover 2 meters and 70 centimeters, all modes, which is a nice little extra for that, but you're going to pay for that little extra there. The TS590SG is a very nice radio. The model has been around for a long time. However, my understanding is that with time, they're gradually updating it to keep the technologies pretty current. I would go either with the Yaesu or the ICOM, however. Now, he also wants to know about a review of the UKITS HB-1B, which is a QRP rig. It's about $300, and it's 4-band QRP rig, and it'll work. He's got a little tuner for it. Now, my reaction to that, this question is a year old, but still, if you are looking for a QRP all-band, all-mode radio, take a good close look at hfsigs.com. HF, that's, let's see, Hotel Foxtrot, Sierra India Golf Sierra .com, Charlie Oscar Mary. Okay, that will get you to hfsigs.com. The radio that they sell there, it's from India. Okay, will give you 5 to 10 watts on any band, any mode. So you can do voice, you can do FT8, you can do CW, you can do all of these things from 80 on up to 10 meters. Okay, so it's more than that 4 bands for that U kits, which is $100 more. The nice thing about the Micro BITX, it's version 6.0 now, is, and get it with the case. Get it with the case. You can put the whole thing together without doing any soldering. So it's really very nice in that regard. I don't think you have to do any soldering. And you put the whole thing together. It's in a very nice case. It comes with a microphone. Now you will need to get a key if you're going to do CW. You can get a $30 or $40 key from MFJ. Don't get the little ones that look like chintzy plastic. Get the ones that say cwmorse.us on them. Okay, FT8 and 2 is a real hoot. It does work. Test session this morning. 1 new tech and 1 new general. Very good. Hello from far west Missouri. Have a good flight. Be safe. We're trying to fly twice a day. Trying to. And see what we can get in there that way. Okay, that takes care of that question. Let's take this next one here. Is a question that I got on July 15, 2019. And this is a guy at head of technical support at Rig Expert. And he wanted to know if he could send me a Rig Expert to test. And he did. It came from Canada. It came from their Canadian subsidiary, and I've tested it. It is a favorite antenna analyzer, and a very fine antenna analyzer. And I have not even begun to explore all the different things it can do. It will connect to your computer and dazzle you even more. So they did send me one. I did do a video or 2, or maybe even 3 about it. It's very nice, and I use it when I'm making videos about an antenna. I can show the SWR on an entire band, just right on the screen. It's very nice. Okay, and the killer spud, I guess you can call him the big potato, is going to be taking his extra today at DEF CON's online exams. Good for you, and good luck to you. Let us know how you do. Don DeGidio is wishing the killer spud good luck in that. Okay, this one is from Leroy Anderson. I have a question about tech hams on 20 meters. Are we allowed on 20 meter band? No. There are no techs on 20. There is no CW allocation for techs on 20 meter. And I noticed on this latest band plan for where the ARRL is saying what the tech should get, there's no 20 meters for the techs. And that, what would you call it? Shibboleth goes back 50, 60, 70 years about not letting the newbies on 20 meters because 20 meters has for so many years been considered the main band in amateur radio. It's not so much right now. 40 is because of the low sunspot cycles, but 20 is going to be coming back pretty soon. But no, there won't be techs on 20 meters. And Leroy, if you happen to be listening, I'm sorry, it's over a year late getting this. Go ahead and get your ham license and then try and get your general. Eric Blanchard, who is November Zulu 5 Juliet, says, loves the videos and the blog, read your article about RF and the shack. He's got issues with that. It causes him problems when he's transmitting on his Heil headset because the RF travels down. Now, he talks a little bit about his grounding system. He's got it grounded. Hello, Barnacle Brad. Thank you very much. 3 airplanes and $10. I appreciate that. Okay, so Eric here has his rig, which is his single point ground for his station is the window pass-through plate, and then that is grounded to the ground rod outside. And the coax runs about 25 feet to an end-fed half-wave antenna from my antennas. Now he's got RF in the shack. Okay, here is what I suggest you do. Now I do have a video on grounding. It's number 8. It goes back a long way, but it's still valid. Get a lightning arrestor for your antenna. 1 lightning arrestor per antenna. Mount it right at the ground rod. Mount it right on that ground rod, okay? Then bring your antenna lead to the lightning arrestor, and then from the lightning arrestor back up into your shack. It will work miracles for you to get that antenna properly grounded, okay? And I think that will help you more than anything else to do that. From Ame Nikam, hello David, greetings from India. How are you? Good to see you. And the Netherlands. What are your experiences doing DX, for example, to Europe these days? I have not recently. I will say that when I was last on working DX, I sure seemed to get a lot of Spanish stations. And some from the Netherlands, but the Spanish stations seem to come in really well, which is interesting. They're actually a little further away on a great circle map. Okay, so Eric, that's what I would suggest for you, is doing that. Trying to go to the ground from your radio and then straight to an antenna. That means all that stuff that should go to ground comes right through your station. And you don't want to have that right there. All this flying talk makes me want to get back in the air. It's from Brad Rich. Oh, Brad, I should call you and just pour out my troubles about turns. Jeez. Yesterday I said, we're going to go up tomorrow and just for a few minutes, all I'm going to do is practice turns. And we did that. And then we practiced some slightly more complex turns till I could get the rudders and the stick with this very light aircraft. Just pulling the stick to one side does nothing except tilt the aircraft. But you have to lead with the rudder and then follow the stick and then push back to get your turns, the turn stops so it doesn't progress more. Okay, SFI up 74 today. Last time it was that high. What is the FSI? SFI. That is an acronym I'm not familiar with. Rod is Stu Echo, so he's in the UK. Dan Montague's a new ham. He has the ATD 878 UV with stuff from Bridgecom, working through the code plug programming. All right, very good. Still troubleshooting? Yeah, it takes a little while to get it set up. Persistence is the key word in everything, flying as well as ham radio. Okay, this is from this is Paul, who's looking for a best antenna for a small attic. He's actually got a space that's 30 by 18 with the 6-foot peak running along the 18-foot length. It's under a non-metallic roof. If it's feasible, I'd like to keep to a single feed, although that's not a deal breaker, and understand that a tuner is given. I'm going to give you some examples of antennas that might work up in your attic. A dipole, of course. And zigzag it around, do whatever you need to do. Go out to the edges and then wrap in opposite directions or something like that. Or make a great big loop up there and feed it with ladder line and a wide range tuner, although you're probably going to be dealing with RFI if you do that. Another is to take a look at MFJ's cobweb antenna, which will fit in the space you describe pretty handily. And that would be another one, and that'll give you 4 bands. You can also do the octopus antenna up there easily, plenty of room for it. And you can choose 4 bands that you would operate there. I'd make sure 40 was one of them. Okay. And Optical Man Jeff, thank you. And have fun with the flying, he says. I am. This is way outside my comfort zone to do something like this, to come down here, leave home, leave my wife, come down here and just do flying, except of course on Thursday and Saturday we do live streams. I told him today we were supposed to be doing ground school, and I told Kevin is the name of the flight instructor. I told Kevin, I says, I got to go to work. I've got a live stream to do. Okay, so you can do an octopus, you can do the cobweb antenna, you could put a loop up there. If you don't mind the very narrow bandwidth and constantly having to retune, you can put one of the MFJ magnetic loop antennas that has a remote tuner that would work quite well for you. So that you've got options. You've got options that you can do up there in that antenna. And, if you can, the cobweb, MFJ has no particular patent or anything on the cobweb. You could find plans for one and just duplicate it yourself. And it doesn't need to be super strong, because you're not going to get any. If you get wind in the attic, you've got bigger problems. So you can just make your own up there for next to no money, although you will need a little bit of a balance. So there are a variety of things that you can do, Paul, to and he is KC1KMM in the attic. Lots of different kinds of antennas. He's got actually a pretty good size up in there to work with. I'm amazed that next to nobody understands the solar indices. He's talking A, K, and stuff like that, and they impact the propagation in a complex way. Okay, we're ham operators. What do you think about going with an ICOM 718 and a laptop with SDR dongle, open source software, and the MFJ 1708 SDR switch versus the more expensive model HF rig built-in pan adapter? Well, I will tell you that the ICOM 7300 is a beautiful pan adapter. The SDR dongles, you might as well get the SDR Play RSP1A for $100 if you're going to do that, because then that will give you far better than any dongle you can get. But you need a way to feed the antenna with that SDR switch in there. That would work too. And this is from Foxtrot 4 India Kilo Golf from France is here. I can tell you the ICOM 718 is perfect for digital modes. Great radio. It is a great radio. The 718, I believe, is the QRP version. Okay, so that was the best antenna for a small attic. Let's see what else we've got here. Damy Hues, Whiskey Alpha 7, Japan, Honolulu, JH. I watched episode 204. Okay, 204. That would have been about 2 years ago. No, I put out all those videos during the pandemic, so it wouldn't be 2 years ago. He says, I work for Hytera and would love to provide you with more information surrounding DMR. If interested, let me know. Hytera is the largest commercial DMR radio manufacturer in the world. Anyway, let me know if I can be of some help. Jamie, yes, you absolutely can be of help. And I'm going to fold this paper back here so that I follow up on that. Now, that's a year old. Hope he's still willing. Okay, this is from Eddy Giddens. They actually went to hamradioanswers@gmail.com. He's in Oxford, England, not yet an amateur. He has an AOR AR8600 and a Uniden 3500 XLT, which are scanners. He's interested in air traffic, or the air band. He's an engineer and likes to do things as close as he can to the theory. Wanted to make my own antennas and tune them to specific frequencies. One of the problems with the airband is that it is a fairly wide section of frequencies, from 118 up to about 130. It's very wide, and you really need to get some sort of an antenna that is broadband. And one of the easiest broadband antennas to make for that would be a disc cone. Now, it'd be a little bit bigger than the disc cones that you get normally for 2 meters or for scanners and stuff like that. You want the distance down to the bottom to be greater than a quarter wavelength. So they're normally 19 inches long. You'd want to just go longer. It doesn't really how much you go longer because the disc cone is a that's a very, very broadband, wide antenna. He says he bought a Rig Expert AA230 Zoom, bought a mag base for the car with a 3/8 screw that accepts the 3mm diameter copper bar. Using an online calculator for a 1/4 inch whip and then aiming for 123 megahertz, got a result of 610 millimeters. Now, I don't have at the top of my head what the conversion number is for wire antennas for metric. It's 468 divided by the frequency in megahertz for English units. Okay, now the 468 includes the fact that there's a 95% velocity factor of RF in wire. I don't know what the equivalent is in metric. It's close to 300, but it's going to be a little less than that, again, because of the 95% velocity factor of RF in a wire. Oh, the cool hat. You see my Colorado hat? Yeah, thank you. South of France, exactly. Rod bid us goodbye, has to leave. How far you pound the top rail into the ground for a vertical at 30 meters tall? I don't pound it into the ground at all. I put it, in fact, on a block and then guy it. And if you want to turn it into an antenna, first of all, I don't think 30 meters tall is 100 feet. I think you'd have trouble with that. Barnacle Brad. Hello, Barnacle Brad. And disc cone best for air. Yeah, I would do that. Ham radio crash course. Oh, there he is. Ah, I didn't read that. Thank you. Hoshnazi from Ham Radio Crash Course is on today with us. I'm in Arizona getting flight training. Okay, Jeff, you sure you mean 30? It's about 95 feet tall, yeah. Okay, well, this guy, what is he tuned it 2 different ways for the best for 123. And again, I wouldn't recommend the quarter wave because it's too specific to a frequency. You get much off the frequency, 5% either way, and you're going to be not receiving very well. He says that when he used a Rig Expert to tune the 3mm bar, he got 680 meters. Okay, that's 70 centimeters. I like that. Longer antenna, and confused why there is such a large discrepancy. Well, I can't know without looking at it, but there are multiple things that could be happening. The coax is attached at the base of the antenna, and part of the coax could be radiating. I say radiating, but on receive, it could be receiving. I would go with if you want to listen to airband, go with the homemade disc cone would work just fine. Does my plane have ADS-B out? Yes. Do I have ADS-B in? Yes. Okay. Does your plane? Let's see. Cool. Jeff, I mean it. Oh, looks like they're carrying on here. Okay. Now this is from James Bergout, KJ7BUJ. Thanks for your videos and all the amazing information you share. Could say the same thing about Ham Radio Crash Course here too. He's got more subscribers than I do. There was a time when I had more than him, but he went zooming on by. Recently renewed my license after letting it lapse. Okay. He's the emergency preparedness coordinator for his church. He's now studying for the general and plan on getting it in a month or two. Notice which rig you would suggest for first HF rig. Well, I have a suggestion. It's the ICOM 7300. Go to dcasler.com, dcasler.com/reference. And that includes all the information that I currently have up there for the reference station. And the reason it's called a reference station is this is what I have. You can refer to it. And you can duplicate it or you can deviate from it. Now, I will note that when I do a video about an HF radio, it'll be the 7300. Okay, so there's that. Now, he's also considering the FTDX 3000. I do not consider the FTDX 3000 to be an entry-level radio. Now, the 7300 has got lots of bells and whistles, but I do consider it to be an entry-level radio. Okay. He says he has $1,500 set aside. He's going to spend that. I think I did a video somewhere where I went through all the costs of the different parts, everything that you're going to need to get for that. But yeah, I mean, just getting coax and even making your own antenna, you've got to have the coax running there. This one is from Doug Estes, KD5ILG. Says, hey Dave, I just struggled through and finally got my new Belfang RD5R. Nice little radio, I reviewed that once. Programmed and all seems to be okay, except I don't get any responses or answers to my calls. My Pi-Star hotspot shows that I'm sending out a signal, but no response. Maybe I'm just tired and forgot something. But I thought you could give me a hint of something that I may have overlooked. Thanks, and 73 from KD5ILG. Let me tell you about 2-meter radio, whether it's DMR, D-Star, or just plain old FM. There are busy repeaters and then there are all the rest. And it's the same with talk groups or rooms or reflectors or whatever you want to call it. Of the talk groups on DMR, 99.9% of them are hardly used at all. And then there are a very small number, like the whole US or something like that, that are extremely active. And this comes back to the network theorem, fundamental network theorem, that the value of a network is proportional to the square of the number of people who use the network. And so it's a law of nature that says when there are multiple networks, people are going to tend to congregate to a very small number of them. And so you will find that in your area, you may have 5 repeaters, one of which is always busy. The others are busy for nets or for MCOM or something like that. But one of them will always be busy. And when I was in Boulder, Colorado, it was the BARC repeater for Boulder Amateur Radio Club. Their repeater was the one that was always active. And you're going to find the same thing on DMR, that people do not spread uniformly out across channels. They congregate on a few of them. Your task is to find out which few they do. And probably the best way of doing that is by talking with other hams, either your friends who got your license about the same time you did, or your club, or something like that. Now, there are some people who own a talk group, and they're going to try and tell you to get you to come use theirs because they're trying to make theirs something that lots of people use. But it's, again, I said, it's a law of nature that people will tend to congregate and clump in certain places, and the rest will have very little traffic. So I think that answers that question. Greetings from Tony Ridlin in Marion, Indiana. Okay. Yeah, drinks beer on his videos. Okay, well, yeah, I know. I've seen it. I met him. And he wanted to have his gathering of hams at Dayton in a bar. I'm a Mormon boy. I don't drink at all, so I go in there and see if I can get some 7-Up or something. 6-meter vertical one that does not need radials. Well, you've either got a half wave on 6 meters, which would be 10 feet tall, that's end fed. You can do that, and you won't have need for any radials. You probably will want to put a counterpoise on it, but you don't need radials for that. Okay, so we talked about the log networks there. This next one is from Rich Hansen, KJ7BUJ, Bravo Uniform Juliet. Thanks so much for the training videos. I recently passed my extra test. This is Rich Hansen again. I have a question about radio receiver sensitivity. This is a subject that I don't hear too much about, for good reason, because it's not very important on HF. And I was wondering if this is something I should be paying attention to when I start shopping for an HF receiver. Well, first of all, among HF receivers, they're all about the same, okay? You might get a little bit more sensitivity in another, but the thing is, on HF, the actual HF noise floor is about S3, S2 to S3. Sometimes you'll see it down lower than that. And that's just natural noise. That's lightning strikes and whatever. It's just natural noise. And there's no point in being much more sensitive to that. A standard reference figure, they're often given in microvolts. And 1 microvolt sensitivity on HF is acceptable. Now, when you get up into VHF, different story, okay, because the bands get very quiet at VHF, and also 10 and 12 meters, they're very quiet. Now, your radio may have a preamp on it. The only time you're going to use that preamp is on 10 or 12 meters, okay? Or if for some reason the 20-meter signal is just super quiet band, which is rare, you can kick that preamp in. But actually, preamps, now without going into all the theory, a preamp will slightly increase noise and reduce the actual sensitivity. Okay, so that's just one page. So that's the thing about HF transceivers. Sensitivity is not a big deal for HF transceivers. They're all about the same. Okay, and Fred, KE0EF in Colorado, thank you for your $24.99 on Super Chat. I appreciate that very much. Hello from the high desert in Oregon. Randy loves the videos. Randy says great information and conceptual education. Passed his tech in general online. Note they wouldn't let me use a TI-86 or use pencil and paper to do the math, so I couldn't pass the extra. That seems very odd. You're supposed to be able to take your calculator in there. And, okay. but congratulations on passing your general. That is super. This is from Pete Steady from the UK, or Pete Steadmen M6WW. Says he recently moved using digital modes because the solar minimum was creating problems with propagation. I think that's what that idiom means. Weak signal modes seemed ideal. When I attached my laptop to the IC718, my noise floor increases. That's interesting. Luckily, they are weak signal modes with this noise. After testing, I've located the problem as the CAT cable, meaning the USB cable itself. I've looked for USB ISOs, and that you can get little ferrite things that you can clip over cables, and you put them at both ends of that USB cable. Okay. Question is twofold. Could you please recommend one or another method of overcoming the noise? Second, are these USB ISOs suitable for HF frequencies? Yes, they are. I think you're talking about the little ferrite cores, and you snap them around it. Some of them are big enough you can actually loop it through a time or two, and that'll create a problem. Second, there's no HF per se. Going through those cables, although there are some very high frequencies in use there digitally, they're just moving digital data back and forth. I'm sure that the iron cores won't do it due to it being a ground loop. Sure, why not? It can certainly help you there. Okay, but that's what I would try, is just some ferrite beads. If you get one of the big ferrite cores that's got a big round, wind the thing through that a few times. That will help too. Okay. When people take tests online, you may not be able to use anything other than a Windows calculator. You're supposed to be able to take a sheet, but you have to turn it in. That's the problem. Okay. Calculators with text and memory, maybe. Pencil and paper, yeah. Well, the thing is, you have to turn in the pencil and paper. They have to be submitted along with your exam. Okay. Okay, Daniel has a suggestion of using an isolated cable. I have not heard of isolated USB cables. If you can find one or have a reference for that, that'd be nice. This is from Floyd K8BFO, and he is interested in radios with speech mode, which means radios that announce their frequency and mode. The ICOM 7300 will do this. I recently talked to a blind ham in our local repeater who holds a general license. She was asking about radios with speech modes, like the ICOM 7300 has a speech mode for it. The button is kind of tucked underneath the tuning button. A note worth mentioning is she signed up with a blind ham group on Facebook. They were discussing talking frequency counters. I know Kenwood has a module that can be added, and my ICOM 7200 has a speech mode. But so does the 7300, I believe. And I think that would be very helpful. You can have the speech mode just give out the frequency, or you can have it give out things like the frequency plus the signal report and so on. So take a look at the owner's manual for it, because it tells you how to use the speech mode, and there are often different modes for the speech mode. Okay, the antenna is a Eurocom SE HF X80 80 through 6 meter with no radials with a 6:1 unon. I'm not expecting too much, just testing for a low-cost vertical for our club members. Well, if that's 80 through 10, that's a horizontal antenna. That's not a vertical. I don't think that would help you too much there. N3NDX says hello. Okay, Dave, thanks for his channel. 2 of my kids plus 2 sons-in-law got their tech licenses. Good. When I asked them how they learned the material, they pointed me to your YouTube channel. Oh, great. Great. Okay, so we answered the one about the speech modes. Let's keep going. Bill Taylor. He is, oh, that can't be his call. Here it is. Kilo 8, Tango, Bravo, Whiskey. Will SDR play, RSB1A send and receive? No. Right off the bat, no. An RSB1A is a receiver. It is not a transmitter, okay? That's the thing. I think it confuses a lot of people. These are not transmitters. By the way, I've asked them why they aren't. I mean, they might as well be. They put so much effort into the SDR play line to make them outstanding receivers and then completely ignore transmitting. Okay. Can you use this with a MFJ1708B SDR switch without damaging my new TS590 Sierra Golf transceiver? Yes. The only thing transmitting here is the Kenwood, and you need to protect your RSP1A from that, and that's with that MFJ switch. Okay. Now you cannot transmit and receive using these 2 units again because the SDR plays do not transmit. Okay. So Randy Cox points out that the Yaesu FD450D also has a speech mode. This is for those who are having issues reading the indicators. The Eurocom is a 6-meter tall vertical antenna, so that's about 20 feet. 600 ohm transformers for audio in and out, and an optocoupler for push to talk. Yes, but I think what we were talking about was a USB cable going between the radio and the computer. The 600 ohm transformers and so on would be for the audio between the computer and the audio in and out of the radio, and you'd want to do that. RSP plays can adjust the transmit frequency if there's sync. Yes, you can with the software sync what you're doing with the SDR play with what you're doing with your radio. Okay, as long as the top rails are guide should be fine. Any antenna better than none? Yes, true. Echolink All-Star D-Star, who is the fairest one of all? Who knows? You ask, would the fairest one step up, and they all step up. Echolink is entirely analog. D-Star and DMR and C4FM are the big 3 digital. There are some other forms like P.25 and so on that you can use. Okay, this is from Mike Carrington, WA5ZTE. You suggest copper strap is best for grounding rod to station. Yes. How do you fasten them? Fold them so that they fit in the compression fittings. That will do. When you say copper strap, I envision 1-inch or 2-inch or perhaps even 3-inch straps of solid copper. I would go with the 1-inch myself. Some people go with the 2. It's not cheap. Is that what you mean, or are you talking about braided copper strapping? Well, braided copper strapping is tinned, so it actually looks silver, and that works fine too. One thing to be aware of, the braid is really good because it has so much surface area, and remember that RF likes to go over the surface of the conductor. But if you have a break in there or something, you can get a hot spot, and that braid actually burns. Steel will burn, copper will burn if it's fine enough and if somebody gets it going, and that strap can blow out in lightning more quickly than the braid can blow out in lightning more quickly than the strap would blow out. So for that reason, you might go with the strap. What do I use? I use an old piece of number 2 stranded wire. That's number 2. It's got 7 strands in it. It's like that. It's thick stuff. Okay, here's Bill Cody from Broomfield, Colorado. Question concerning rain gutter antenna. Our HOA poses antenna restrictions. I'm wondering what kind of performance to expect. One of the things you need to make sure of with the rain gutter is that all of the pieces are actually, in fact, connected to each other. Okay, so that would mean going along with screws or something. Now, the rain gutter is aluminum, so if you use anything other than aluminum in the strap, you're going to have corrosion problems. For example, copper and aluminum, it will corrode. So another way to do it is with stainless steel hardware, and you have your piece of aluminum, you take your screw and come down through the aluminum with stainless steel, put a washer up there, stainless steel washer, put your copper, put a stainless steel washer, and then a nut. That way the copper only touches stainless steel and the stainless steel only touches aluminum, and then you can bond the sections together. Can you load it? Oh, you bet. You bet you can load it. Absolutely. Have a gap tighten and DX commander. Do you think there is any reactance between the two at 20 feet apart? There's some. You remember the rule number 1 in antennas is that everything affects everything. So there will be some, but if you got them about 20 feet apart, you can switch between them and stuff like that and see which one you like. Can you phase them? Sure. Google Opto Isolated USB, it will give you what you need, no URLs allowed in the chat. You can do a URL by putting a name and then just putting the words .dot and stuff like that. A rain gutter, it's web. Yeah, I know somebody who loaded a rain gutter. It was a very good ham. I have some M&P that's messy and palini, something like that. Airborne 10 on order. Does anybody have any experience with this cable? MFJ, of course, does. How does the radiation pattern change as the two ends of the dipole move down toward the ground and become an inverted V? The radiation pattern tends to become less directional. That's all. It just interacts with the ground so much, it becomes less directional. It's more of an omnidirectional antenna. And Vermont Bachelor says he uses a chunk of booster cable for a ground cable, 2 gauge. That'll work too. Bill Cody, if the gutter is aluminum, make sure all the joints have a rivet or screw connecting all the joints. Now, if you're going to use a rivet or something like that, make sure it is aluminum, or you will get corrosion very quickly. Triplite available through Amazon, some nice USB cables with integrated ferrite chokes. Thank you, Tom, for the pointer. Also wondering about how the pattern would change for an upright V where the two dipole ends move higher. I really don't know. It would probably be somewhat less directional, but you've got to go through a lot of trouble to make it do that. I have and this is from Ed. I have an NFED half-wave 80 through 10 2K for my antennas. Works as expected with slight tuning with my ICOM 7300 internal tuner and some bands. Need advice shortening it to a 7510. That's a different antenna. Now you'll note that the 80 through 10 has a little loading coil not very far down and so on. Contact my antennas and see if they will tell you what you need to do or sell you a modification kit. But it's not just simply a matter of shortening it. Okay, Whittier loves the videos. Okay, let's go on to the next one. This one is from Mike. Oh, we talked to Mike Carrington. We did that one. Here's another one from Mike Carrington. WA5ZTE. I watched you put the connectors on the LMR 400 with a cable stripper. I'm having trouble finding a stripper for RG58. RG58 was once very popular with hams, but then RG8X came out and kind of pushed RG58 aside. Usually when you get RG58 these days, it's not very good quality coax. He wants to know where he can get the strippers. You could talk to Quicksilver Radio and see if you've got them there. That's where I got mine. Or you could try DX Engineering. They have all kinds of those tools on there. Give that a try. See if that will help. This next one is from Fred Monday, a former WB0YBM. Been away for ham radio many years. Used to love antennas. And the one thing has changed that I don't fully understand on Yagi and some quads. I've noticed that the distance from the driven to the first director is quite short. Fred, let me tell you what's happened in the design of Yagi antennas. What's happened is the computer. For years, and I think even the guy who invented these, Professor Yagi, everything was designed on the assumption that it was equally spaced. Well, once they got good modeling software, people started playing with the different distances and discovered that first director should be a whole lot closer to the driven element than was traditional. And they discovered that a good Yagi is kind of has nonlinear spacing constraints. Okay, so that's what happened. Everybody had made a bad assumption that the spacing was supposed to be this way. If you look at the old A3S antenna and the A4S antenna, which you can still get from Cushcraft, or is it Highgain? Same company, it's MFJ. They're equally spaced antennas. If you look at their newer antennas, they're not equally spaced. And you want the newer antenna, obviously, because it will give you better performance. Okay. So 1500 volt isolator, USB isolator modules. Okay, Daniel, thank you for putting that up. That will help getting what he's looking for. Okay, so that is what's happening with those Yagi antennas. All right, this one is from Irvin B. Johnson, KN2NJL Are. Okay, this is Friday, June 28th of 2019. Just going through some of your videos and wondering if you are going to or are working on videos for the new general pool of questions beginning July 1st, 2019. I found your technician and extra, but general videos are still based on the older editions. The current book is in the 9th edition. And yes, I did update those. I am in the process of updating the general. I'm about not quite a third of the way through. And then, of course, we've got the 2-week hiatus for the aviation training since I am in Phoenix and am focused entirely on aviation except for the live streams. By the way, the live streams are moments of sanity going through this. I very much appreciate it. Okay, this is from Eric Graff. Dave, great to meet you. Starting to get into learning about the tech license, a graduate of the electrical trades in my vocational school in '86, and have been through an apprenticeship in the IBEW, which I think is the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, local for 30 years. I'm more than a noob about some theory, serial communications, computers, it's but no expert as far as I'm an electrician by trade. That said, I bought your app from the Mac App Store. I didn't know I had an app on the Mac App Store. Somebody using my name and has subscribed to your YouTube channel. A good instructor, and if I wanted to go straight to the extra license, are there 3 separate manuals from the league? Unfortunately, yes. The exams are cumulative, so you have to take the tech before you take the general, before you take the extra. Okay, so that means you're going to have to pass all 3. I know it's a pain. It's like flying. You can't pass your instrument as your first license. This one is from KN KC1HRC. I just saw a YouTube video about how the 2-meter amateur band is being considered for reallocation as an aeronautical band. That was a momentary suggestion in France, and it created let me say it this way, a lot more heat than light in the US when that came about, and just as quickly as the dust gathered, it dissipated. Nobody's talking about that anymore. So, nothing to worry about. Well, our spectrum is always under attack by different people, but that particular problem is not that. Speaking of cable connectors, any suggestions on good PNC connectors? I've had 2 fail where they were soldered and crimped types. Let me see, how can I phrase this gently? I hate BNC connectors. I have never attempted to put one on myself, and I just would rather use a PL259. But BNC are used a lot, a great deal, and across the world and various test applications and so on, they're used far more than the PL259, which is anymore kind of an American thing. So, yeah, they do make different types of connectors. Talk to coaxusa.com or .us or something like that. Bill, thank you for looking. I appreciate that very much. Okay, KN2NJL, Jeff, says, I live right on the Canadian border. The Canadians use 70-70 on the 40-meter band to talk, in other words, sideband. Everything I see about band use says considerate use. Yeah, you're in the U.S., bud. It never says mandatory use. Well, yes, they are. There are some lightly laid out band plans in the FCC regulations, and no, you are not allowed to use sideband on 70 centimeters. There is an FCC reg in Part 97. Go take a look at that, okay? Now, my Canadian friends tell me they talk to U.S. hams every day. Well, they don't do it legally then, because they're not supposed to be doing that. There are differences, and if you're on this side of the border and they do things entirely differently on the other side of the border, doesn't mean that their way of doing things sort of bleeds across the border a little bit. Talking sideband on 70-70 is not permitted in the U.S. So this is from Jim Richardson. Hi, Dave. Question wire size for QRP. I would like to try my hand at QRP. I'd like to be able to backpack into a remote area, set up the FD817ND, and make a few contacts. Very worthy goals. As I would be carrying all the equipment, how does the wire gauge affect his antennas? And the answer is it doesn't for the power that you're using. Go ahead and use the 16 gauge. Yeah, the larger the diameter, you've got more surface area, so you're going to have lower radiation resistance. But you're fine with that. You don't need to change it. I just want to, I know I'm just a minute over time, but let me talk about this last one. This last one is a long essay on somebody's bad luck. He has a wife who has her general. She is blind. He has a tech, so he's using her as the control operator to talk on a net that they at one point had good luck on, but now when they try it again, using her as the control operator, they got a bad reaction from people. First of all, the rules around control operating are specific but not well known, because most people don't operate as control operators for other people. Okay, you can go read the rules in Part 97 and figure out what they are. Second, this guy is not being persistent. He had a bad experience with the nets and now he wants to throw everything away. No, you're going to have bad experiences on the air. You just are going to have bad experiences. You've got to be persistent. If that net doesn't work out, find a different net. Or make some other friends to talk to and just get on the air and talk in the evening and so on. And this guy who has his technician really needs to work on getting his general, so he doesn't need to use his wife as control operator. His wife needs to have her own ham radio friends on the air too, so that she can get on and talk. And there are, as we were talking about earlier, a number of radios that there are other, there are radios available that the blind can use to get on and talk and have a good time too. So they could have a good experience, but they're letting one bad experience. And frankly, the way I read through that, I can kind of see why they had a bad experience. They weren't being very gentle about it. They're, I think, demanding that other hams be polite to them, and demanding politeness from other people never gets you anywhere. So anyway, I would recommend that he go ahead and get his general, that they try different nets, that they be persistent, they recognize that it's going to take them a year to really get settled into their different ways of doing things. So that's the last question. Let's see what else we have here. Vermont bachelors doing a lot of off-roading in the mountains have noticed a lot of unlicensed users of some public service frequencies. Yes, that's because you can go buy those radios. They're Chinese radios, and they use them without modifying anything, and they're not FRS radios. And they're public service. They're set on public service frequencies. The FCC has put out one letter saying don't do that. Let's see. Yeah, PL259s, granted, are long obsolete. Okay, the only reason I conclude is that they lack the necessary schooling to fit a crimp plug. Well, that's probably my problem. Even Motorola commercial rigs use UHF connectors. Bill Cody says appreciates the inspiration, and Tom says thank you for the stream. Well, I've got to go back over to the airport so we can talk about ground school, about doing cross countries, and pick apart the turns I was doing today. And I'm going to say 73 to you. My plan is still to do a live stream on Thursday. Okay, there won't be any other videos out unless I somehow manage to get out a video on flying. but on Thursday I will do the live stream. Thank you all so much. I just want to tell you guys how much I appreciate your support. You know, it's just a nice feeling knowing that when I'm going out to do this very strange thing, I've got 72,000 people at my back wishing me the best luck, and I just greatly appreciate it. So I'm going to say 73 to everybody and hope that you guys all have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you on Thursday. So 73.